This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Brett Baer in Washington. With just moments to spare, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has formed a coalition government by the slimmest of margins. The deal puts Netanyahu at the head of a narrow coalition, controlling just 61 seats in the 120-member parliament. Today's agreement comes after marathon talks with pro-West Bank settlement Jewish Home Party. The new government will be dominated by hardline and religious parties, and that could put it on a collision course with the U.S. and other allies. The pact came less than an hour ahead of a midnight local time deadline. Sources close to the Prime Minister's office are downplaying the fragile perception of this coalition and expect it to strengthen as time moves on. More with the panel a little bit later. Now to American politics. The last time the candidate Clinton PR machine was this mobilized, it was dealing with private issues that went public in the 1992 presidential campaign. Now it's about Hillary Clinton instead of Bill, and it's about money, not sex. We have Fox team coverage of the 2016 campaign. Mike Emanuel looks at how Republicans are jostling for position on their very crowded side of the fence. But we begin with Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry following the Clinton campaign. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Brett. Hillary Clinton today is raising big money behind closed doors at the San Francisco home of billionaire Tom Steyer. Another day she did not answer questions as some new ones were raised on Capitol Hill.
A top State Department official today blasted Hillary Clinton's use of a personal email server for official business.
I think the message is loud and clear that that is not acceptable.
Despite Clinton making this promise at her last news conference 2 months ago.
I fully complied with every rule that I was governed by.
The testimony from Joyce Barr, Assistant Secretary of State for Administration, came at a Senate hearing on open records laws.
Ms. Barr, did either you or Undersecretary for Management Patrick Kennedy know that Secretary Clinton was operating exclusively on a personal and private email server?
I have no information on that, sir. I was not aware of that.
That came as former President Bill Clinton used an unfortunate word, shred, to again defend the Clinton Foundation.
Even the guy that wrote the book apparently had to admit under questioning that he didn't have a shred of evidence for this. He just sort of thought he'd throw it out there and see if it'd fly.
That would be Peter Schweizer, author of Clinton Cash, who never quite said that. Today, the New York Times released a poll showing since ethical questions were first raised in March, the number of Americans who think Clinton has strong qualities of leadership has risen by 8 percentage points, from 57% to 65%, though that may be more due to the fact that the poll had a sample more heavily weighted to Democrats, who are rallying around Clinton as she tacks to the left on a series of issues, including yesterday in Las Vegas, where she promised to double down on President Obama's executive actions on immigration.
And if Congress continues to refuse to act as president, I would do everything possible under the law to go even further.
Though at the White House, spokesman Josh Earnest again said the president already did all he could on immigration, raising questions about whether Clinton's moves would be legal.
I'm not going to be in a position to render a legal opinion.
Bill Clinton, who promised to take a back seat, keeps taking the lead on responding to questions, including one today from a billionaire donor at a foundation event in Marrakesh.
I was amazed because I started to watch the news, the Fox and other guys, and none of those people asked a question, what this foundation is doing actually.
I just work here. I don't know.
Now, at that Senate hearing, Joyce Barr was pressed on whether the State Department knows if Clinton has turned over all of her official emails. She admitted they're taking her word for it. And that's why in the last 2 days, the conservative group Judicial Watch has now filed 7 lawsuits seeking more email, not just from Hillary Clinton, but top aides like Huma Abedin as well. Brett?
Ed, thank you.
Good to see you.
Now to the Republicans, who are also talking a lot about Hillary Clinton. Another topic of conversation, though, the shifting tides of the early polls. Here's senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel.
A new Quinnipiac survey of likely Republican caucus goers reveals Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker is still leading in Iowa, but his margin has shrunk. The biggest movers in that poll are Senators Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, with Rubio surging 9 points from last in Iowa to tied for second with Senator Rand Paul. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee is right behind them in the new poll. Huckabee, who won Iowa in 2008 and just joined the race yesterday, was in the Hawkeye state today.
I'd like to think I'm going to be taken seriously because I'm a responsible candidate who governed a state very effectively for a long time in a very hostile political environment. We want to win Iowa.
Democrat strategist Joe Trippi says Huckabee is likely to be a factor.
He could be very, very disruptive there to a lot of the other candidates, Ted Cruz and others, who are sort of in part of his lane.
The Quinnipiac poll shows a drop for former Governor Jeb Bush in Iowa, with his support cut in half, falling to 5%. Others near the bottom in that Iowa poll are Chris Christie, Rick Perry, Rick Santorum, Ohio Governor John Kasich, and former CEO Carly Fiorina. Fiorina, after jumping into the race on Monday, took her unconventional campaign to a late-night comedy show and continued blasting Hillary Clinton.
But Hillary Clinton is kind of the personification of a professional political class. Doesn't mean she's a bad person. It's just she's been in politics all her life, and a lot of people are tired of that.
Meanwhile, Kasich was in New Hampshire today testing the waters there.
If I'm talking about what I don't like about Hillary, then I'm not telling you what I think. And I think you need to know more about who I am and what I think than what I think negative about somebody else. So.
As for Jeb Bush, there are signs in a new NBC Wall Street Journal survey that Republican primary voters are warming to him. 27% of likely GOP voters say they cannot see themselves backing Bush, but that's down 15 points since March.
Then there's this. The percentage of likely GOP voters who say they could see themselves voting for Bush is now 70%, which places him second behind fellow Floridian Marco Rubio at 74%. Brett?
Mike, thank you. Following Sunday's aborted terror attack in Texas, ISIS is warning the U.S. there are plenty more where that came from. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is here with what appears to be an ominous signal from the terror group. Good evening, Catherine.
Well, Brett, the online threat from a self-described American jihadist said Sunday's terror attack in Garland, Texas was the work of ISIS. It targeted the blogger who organized the cartoon contest and claimed ISIS has trained operatives in more than a dozen U.S. states. While offering no independent evidence to back up the claim, the threat posted to a file-sharing website singled out Virginia, Maryland, Illinois, Michigan, and California. And while the analysis is ongoing, Fox News is told the threat did not come from ISIS leadership, but rather a lesser-known operative who wants to associate himself with the terror group. On Garland, Texas, the White House said today investigators are taking a hard look at the Twitter traffic we first told you about Monday between the suspects and ISIS operatives in Syria and Somalia that suggested members of the terror group knew about the plot in advance and even mentored the suspects.
The analysts want to review whether the claim is accurate, and if so, at what level ISIL may have known or potentially even sanctioned this attempted attack.
I don't think the administration should stand on ceremony whether this was an official, formal ISIS attack. There's no doubt it was inspired by ISIS.
And today, the Secretary of State authorized 4 rewards between $3 and $7 million for information leading to the capture of ISIS leadership, including this man, Abu Muhammad al-Adnani, the group's media mouthpiece. What's key is that the same strategy was used by the Bush administration to track down Osama bin Laden after al-Qaeda leadership went into hiding after 9/11. Today's announcement is seen as more evidence that the Obama White House recognizes ISIS is now a legitimate threat to U.S. national security. Brett.
Catherine, thank you. California regulators have adopted sweeping and unprecedented water use restrictions amid the state's ongoing drought. They will force cities to limit watering on public property and encourage homeowners to let their lawns die. Governor Jerry Brown has proposed $10,000 fines for serious offenders. He wants water usage cut 25% statewide. It took more than 100 days, but the NFL is finally saying what it thinks happened to those deflated footballs in the AFC Championship game in January. And fans of the New England Patriots are not going to like it. Correspondent Molly Lyon is live in Boston tonight. Hi, Molly.
Hi, Brett. The Deflategate probe clears New England Patriots coach Bill Belichick, but asserts the quarterback Tom Brady was, quote, at least generally aware of inappropriate activities. The accusations that the Patriots intentionally deflated footballs during the AFC Championship game against the Indiana Colts this past January to make them easier to handle cast a shadow over the season's end and the team's Super Bowl victory. The months-long wait for answers is over, but the conclusions may fall a bit flat for football fans. fans, especially Pat's supporters. The report reveals in less than definitive language that it is more probable than not that a locker room attendant and equipment assistant participated in deliberate efforts to release air from game balls. The report uses that phrase, "it is more probable than not," once again to express the view that Brady was aware. Patriots owner Bob Kraft pushed back, writing, "To say we are disappointed in its findings, which do not include any incontrovertible or hard evidence of deliberate deflation of footballs at the AFC Championship game, would be a gross understatement." Still, Kraft acknowledged that fighting the league would be futile, writing that the team will accept the findings and any discipline levied by the league. So now New England Patriots fans must wait to find out if the NFL will punish personnel or Tom Brady. Brett?
Molly Line, live in Boston. Molly, thank you. There are obviously bigger fish to fry in the news, but it did gain a lot of attention back then. Up next, the pilot who deliberately crashed his plane into a mountain apparently practiced beforehand. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 11 in Los Angeles, where an aide to Democratic State Attorney General Kamala Harris is accused of impersonating a police officer. The LA Times report Brandon Keel and two others are members of what is called the Masonic Fraternal Police Department, which claims to have existed for 3,000 years in 33 states and Mexico. Fox 35 in Orlando at the testing of a new escape system for astronauts aboard SpaceX private flights. Today's exercise involved only a dummy as a passenger. A NASA spokesman says it was unlike any test seen in Florida since the days of Apollo. And this is a live look at Tampa from our affiliate out there, Fox 13. The big story there tonight. A woman held hostage by her boyfriend sends a secret message for help in an online pizza order. Police say the workers at an Avon Park Pizza Hut saw the message in the comments section to call police. They did, and the cops arrested the boyfriend. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.